The vast flagship of the Zk'thor Dominion hovered above Earth's orbit like a menacing metal moon, its smooth hull pulsating faintly with otherworldly energy. Inside, Commander Thrall stood before a vast holographic display of Earth. His reptilian eyes narrowed as he analyzed the crude technological signatures emitting from the planet's surface. "How quaint," he muttered, his voice a blend of condescension and curiosity. Around him, his subordinates chittered with amusement, their sharp talons typing on translucent consoles. This primitive species calls themselves humans, and they dare believe their rudimentary projectiles could stand against our might. Thrall's aide, a sleek-furred creature with a set of gill-like organs fluttering along its neck, replied in a series of melodious tones. An accompanying translation hovered in midair. "Commander, their weapons rely on chemical explosions to propel small metallic projectiles. They lack energy-based systems entirely." Laughter echoed through the command deck. One officer chimed in. "They are as unevolved in warfare as they are in thought. We could annihilate them in an afternoon." "Perhaps," Thrall said, a smug grin curling his lipless mouth, "but there is always value in conquest. Let us teach these primitives to revere the Zk'thor." He waved a three-fingered hand dismissively. "Deploy the landing craft. Begin harvesting this world's resources. Resistance will be amusing." Far below, Lieutenant Rachel Rae Carter crouched inside the command center of Base Echo, her palms braced against the edges of a flickering screen. A series of red dots blinked across the radar, descending rapidly from Earth orbit. She stared at the coordinates with clenched teeth. "They're coming in hard and fast. No attempt at diplomacy," Rae said, turning to face her team. Her weathered uniform told a story of countless skirmishes, though nothing quite like this. The room buzzed with tense activity as operators relayed orders to various ground units. Sergeant Miller, towering and broad-shouldered, stood nearby loading rounds into his rifle. "And here I thought aliens might be friendly. They're not here for tea." Rae sighed, running a hand through her disheveled hair. Her green eyes scanned the room, locking onto Miller's. "Our mission's simple. Slow them down until we can figure out what they want and how to stop them." A young comms officer interrupted, panic in his voice. "Ma'am, our artillery rounds aren't even denting their ships. And their tech, it's like fighting gods with slingshots." Rae didn't flinch. "Then we fight like gods with slingshots. Hold the line and think creatively." The Zk'thor's landing crafts breached the atmosphere, sleek black vessels shedding flames as they descended. Massive ripples of distortion energy swept outward as the crafts hit the ground, forming shimmering shields around them. Alien soldiers emerged, a mixture of insectoid and reptilian forms, their armor gleaming under Earth's sun. Their energy-based weapons unleashed pulsing beams of light that melted concrete barriers like butter. On the human side, chaos erupted as tanks, jeeps, and infantry attempted to counterattack with conventional munitions. Machine gun nests sprayed volleys into the alien ranks, but the bullets ricocheted harmlessly off the energy shields. From her vantage point on a ridgeline overlooking the battle, Rae barked orders into her comms. "Miller, pull your squad back behind Hill 7. We can't take them head-on." "Copy that, LT," Miller replied, but there was hesitation in his voice. "Not sure how long we can keep this up. They're barely noticing us, like we're gnats buzzing around their ears." "That's the point," Rae said, her mind racing for solutions. "A swarm of gnats can wear down the biggest beast. Trust me." Her confidence belied her internal dread. The weapons at their disposal were wildly outmatched, and she knew it. But surrender wasn't in her nature, nor in humanity's DNA. Inside one of the landing crafts, a Zk'thor infantry leader named Vrak observed the battlefield through an organic visor. "They're retreating," he noted to his squad. "Their defenses collapse faster than anticipated. The primitives are slow to evolve," a subordinate replied. "They pose no threat to the Dominion." Vrak nodded, but something gnawed at the back of his mind, a primal unease. "Send word to the fleet. We will crush their final holdouts tomorrow. For tonight, we consolidate our position." His claws tapped on the console, zooming in on a group of retreating human vehicles. He saw desperation, but also a spark of determination that disturbed him. Rae's team regrouped in the shadows of an old warehouse converted into a makeshift command outpost. Maps of the terrain were spread out on wooden crates. Miller paced nearby, restless energy rippling through his massive frame. "We're hitting them with everything we've got, but it's like they planned for all of it." Rae crouched over a crate, studying their supplies. The usual mix of automatic rifles, grenades, and a few older surplus weapons lay before her. "They're not invincible, Miller," she said. Her voice was steady but tight with tension. "No one is." Miller frowned, picking up an archaic-looking machine gun from the cache. Its barrel was long, its design starkly mechanical compared to the sleeker, modern arms surrounding it. "These relics? You serious?" Rae's eyes flickered with an idea forming in her mind. Desperate times, Sergeant. Outside, the distant thrum of alien engines sent tremors through the earth, a grim reminder of what was coming. Rae stood tall, a fire lighting her gaze. "Let's show these aliens how humans fight." The dawn broke with a gray haze over the battlefield, smoke lingering from the previous day's failed resistance. Rae Carter crouched behind the splintered remains of a concrete wall, her earpiece crackling as static swallowed a status report mid-transmission. She sighed, wiping soot off her face. "Comms are spotty again," Miller muttered, crouching beside her. He held the arcade machine gun they had found the night before, its steel frame gleaming dully. "And this plan of yours?" "It still feels like throwing pebbles at a giant." Rae smirked. "It's about what the giant doesn't expect." She adjusted her tactical vest, her tone hardening. "That's how we survive. Keep them guessing. Fear what you don't understand." Around them, the remnants of her unit prepared their positions, laying ambushes with care honed by countless drills. The hastily devised plan relied on funneling the aliens into choke points where heavy machine guns, ancient by modern military standards, could unleash hell. Rae silently prayed their theory about the aliens' energy shields was correct. Meanwhile, in the depths of an alien command pod stationed several kilometers away, Vrak stood with his arms crossed, peering at the tactical display. "Our preliminary sweeps report scattered resistance." A subordinate chirped. "The humans are too disorganized to pose a threat." Vrak didn't respond immediately. The sense of unease from the prior day lingered like a splinter in his thoughts. He replayed footage of a human retreat. Their movements lacked panic, despite their obvious losses. "They fight with irrational determination," he muttered to himself, clicking his talons against the glass interface. "What are they hiding?" Suddenly, an alert flared across the console. One of their forward squads had gone silent, their biosignals blinking out one by one. Vrak's eyes narrowed. "Prepare a reconnaissance squad. Humans are cunning rats. Rats with teeth." Rae didn't hear the alien drones descending until they were almost upon them. A whirling cacophony of anti-gravity thrusters shaking the rubble beneath her boots. She sprang to her feet, barking orders into her comms. "Positions! Wait for my signal." The squad obeyed, and tension thickened like molasses. From her vantage point, Rae saw the alien vanguard enter the ambush zone, a narrow alley flanked by ruins on both sides. Their shields shimmered faintly, reflecting faint morning light. 3, Rae counted, her voice sharp as steel. 2, 1. Miller opened fire. The roar of the heavy machine gun shattered the dawn stillness. A relentless barrage of metal surged forward, tearing through the air with unrelenting speed. Unlike traditional rounds, the sheer velocity and mass of the projectiles overwhelmed the alien shields, their blue glows flickering and failing. Alien warriors dropped, their once impenetrable armor now riddled with smoking holes. Screeches of shock echoed through the narrow confines of the alley as more machine guns joined the chorus, turning the ambush into a slaughter. The aliens retaliated, their energy weapons carving molten arcs through concrete and metal alike. Rae's heart pounded, but she held her ground, barking adjustments to the positions of her team. Keep them in the kill zone. Conserve ammo. Vrak received the report moments later, his secondary monitor filling with chaotic footage from a surviving drone. He watched in disbelief as his soldiers, equipped with shields designed to deflect plasma and energy, crumbled under relentless streams of kinetic projectiles. Impossible, he hissed, claws gouging deep into the console. Primitive trash defeating our shield matrices? How? No one in his command room dared respond. Vrak could taste their uncertainty and fear. He slammed his fist down. Countermeasures. Shift shield harmonics to kinetic dispersion. Deploy heavier units. Back in the alley, Rae and her squad maintained their assault, though their supplies ran low. Shell casings littered the ground, the clinking sound of reloading breaking through the machine gunfire like a metronome of impending doom. "They're adapting," Miller shouted, his voice strained. The shimmering shields in the distance appeared denser now, slowing but not entirely stopping their assault. "I figured they might," Rae muttered. She switched to her backup radio, calling a fallback position. "Echo team, reposition. Use the bottleneck by Ridge 9. The squad moved like clockwork, laying fresh traps and repositioning their remaining heavy guns. Even in retreat, they fired sporadic volleys, giving the impression of greater resistance than they could truly afford. The next wave of aliens moved cautiously, their shield configurations holding for longer but still shattering under concentrated fire. Their advance slowed, and it became clear their initial arrogance had eroded into unease. By mid-afternoon, Rae's unit reached their secondary position. Tired and battered, they quickly fortified their surroundings as best as they could. Miller collapsed onto a pile of debris, wiping grime from his face. "This can't go on much longer. We'll run out of ammo before they run out of bodies." Rae knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We just proved something important today. They're not invincible. They're just like us. Adaptable, but beatable." Her voice was quiet but filled with conviction. A distant rumble interrupted her thoughts. The aliens were regrouping, preparing their next offensive. Rae stood, scanning the horizon. For all her confidence, she knew their advantage was fleeting. Their unconventional strategy had worked, but the aliens wouldn't underestimate them again. "You rest," she said softly. "This isn't over yet." The world shuddered as alien reinforcements arrived. Massive constructs stomping through the wreckage of previous skirmishes, their energy shields glowing ominously against the fading twilight. Rae Carter peered through a set of binoculars from her elevated vantage point, cataloging their movement with growing apprehension. The aliens had learned, deploying thicker shields and heavier weaponry, their strategy no longer driven by the same arrogance. "They're bringing the big guns this time," Miller muttered beside her. His tone wasn't fear. It was sheer exhaustion. "How do you plan to outwit that?" Rae set the binoculars down, her face illuminated by the cold blue light of a nearby terminal. The haphazard combination of old-world firearms and modern technology still felt surreal, even to her. "We keep using what they don't expect," Rae said, her voice sharper than the chill in the air. Her eyes swept across the remaining squad members working around her. "Simple works. It's not about brute force. It's about making their arrogance their enemy." Below the ridge, the battle commenced. The aliens, emboldened by their new tactics, advanced like a slow tidal wave of destruction. Their walkers belched streams of concentrated plasma, tearing jagged streaks into the earth, forcing humans to retreat further toward a natural choke point. Despite their imposing strength, the aliens moved cautiously, wary of further surprises. Rae's voice crackled through the comms. "Hold fire until my mark. We're going to bottle them up and let the guns do the talking, hidden beneath the debris of fallen buildings." Heavy machine guns lay dormant, their crews sweating in the tense silence. The first aliens reached the mouth of the valley, a bottleneck carved from natural cliffs scarred by years of industrial mining. Rae watched as their lead units passed deeper into the trap. Steady, her knuckles whitened around her radio. Above the battlefield, Alien Commander Vrak directed the assault from a hovering command pod. His black eyes darted over displays, meticulously analyzing human movement. "Do they seriously believe stone walls and gunpowder will outlast us?" he muttered, talons rapping rhythmically on the console. But deep down, Vrak knew this wasn't about superior firepower. It was about unpredictability. Humans were behaving like no adversary he'd studied before. Every time they retreated, they left behind chaos instead of desperation. His thoughts fractured when his pod shuddered, an explosion tearing into its flank. "Humans," he snarled. "Relentless insects." Rae gave the signal. "Open fire." The valley erupted with the deafening roar of heavy machine guns, their rhythm relentless. Hundreds of metal projectiles tore through the air, pummeling the alien forces. Shields flared as bullets struck, burning brighter before collapsing under the sheer kinetic force. Without their protective barriers, alien soldiers fell like leaves in a storm. "Keep the barrels cool," Miller barked, feeding ammo belts with speed born of desperation. His biceps strained as he swept his gun's aim, mowing down incoming waves of reinforcements. The aliens scrambled to retreat, their lumbering walkers unable to maneuver within the confines of the valley. One machine faltered and collapsed, crushed under its own weight, as well-placed gunfire severed its joints. Human troops, emboldened by their success, launched into action, laying down grenades and explosives to finish the alien stragglers. Vrak's pod crashed into the valley floor, its impact sending debris flying. He stumbled from the wreckage, one hand gripping a plasma carbine, the other clutching at an open wound leaking iridescent ichor. Rae spotted him instantly. "Miller, take out the leader." "No need," Miller growled, passing his machine gun to a subordinate. He hefted a rifle slung across his back, a modern sniper's design mixed with primitive mechanics. "Got this." The report of the shot echoed like thunder, cutting through the din of battle. The bullet struck Vrak in his torso, and the alien commander collapsed. Around him, what remained of the alien assault scattered, leaderless and disoriented. By sunrise, the battlefield was silent except for the hum of dying machinery and the distant groans of the wounded. Rae stood in the center of what had been the valley trap, scanning the aftermath. Smoke coiled lazily into the air. Broken alien bodies, shattered walkers, and empty shell casings littered the ground. She looked at Miller, who was tending to his squad, and allowed herself a rare moment of relief. "We made them bleed," she said softly, almost to herself. "We showed them they're not untouchable." Miller glanced up and nodded, his expression grim. "And next time, they'll come back harder." "Next time," Rae replied, setting her jaw. "We'll be ready." Her gaze turned to the rising sun, its light cutting through the darkness that had cloaked them for days. Humanity was battered, but alive. Living proof that sometimes the simplest tools, when wielded with courage and ingenuity, could topple even the most advanced empires.